Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, college football is back, baby. Welcome to the Horseshoe Lounge at Roosters. It is a fun, casual joint. That is Bobby Carpenter. This is Zach Boren. Nicole Cox over here on my left. I am Austin Ward. And Ohio State opens practice on Thursday. Who's excited?
I am. Are the players, maybe? Are you excited?
I'm excited, Bob.
Okay, good.
Last year at this time, you were not excited. Oh, boy, I don't want the season to start.
It takes a lot to excite Bob.
Why would he say that?
That's what she said. But because the summer's over. That's why. Like, whenever football season begins, summer ends. And I really like the summer in Ohio. Like, my dad pretends to be here for the January, February, March. I'm not here for that. I'm here for, like, mid-April-ish to mid-October-ish, maybe nice October, hopefully Halloween. But I enjoy that. But I like going to the pool. I like hanging out. I like relaxing. I like sitting here on the precipice of football. It being in the windshield. I don't enjoy living in it all the time, and I don't enjoy it being in the rearview mirror, waiting and lamenting for the next 3 months of gray, and then through the summer until football season comes back. So it's not that I don't like it, football season. I'm not excited for it to start. It's just like I'm not in a rush to end one book just to open up another, a book that I really enjoy.
Bob, it's completely different. You're not going to camp anymore. It's not like your summer's over with.
It is.
Now, hey, listen, you still have like 2 months of pool season left.
100%.
Maybe a month and a half. So guess what? Now you get to watch football in the morning when you go over to practice, literally research football and see what's going on while you're laying out by the pool with a cocktail, Bob.
See, that's where
that's the best part of the summer.
That's where you misconstrue how my days operate, because I've got more XM stuff. I've got more obligations as the fall
That sounds
comes.
like a you problem and not a football problem.
It's a problem because it's due to football that happens. Now I enjoy it, and it's my chosen profession, so I'm not hating it. But that doesn't mean that I'm not significantly more busy.
You need to go
fall.
over to Scioto Country Club and ask them to set up like a black screen, like in front of the pool, so that's your new studio.
Yeah, but that's not going to be enjoyable if I'm working out there. Like I want to just be able to sit there and relax and enjoy some cocktails.
So does every mom in America.
Yep, exactly. That's what I need to be. I need to be a mom in America. That's what I need.
Bob, you're not talking ball by the poolside anyway?
Well, yeah, I am, but those are private radio shows, and I can always eject from that if I need to and escape.
Okay, like I said, Bob's not as excited.
I'm excited.
Zach's excited.
I'm very excited. Yeah,
Thank goodness for that.
I'm very excited. I like the positive in everything. August, still by the pool, talking football, nothing better.
Yes, and I could not be more excited for summer to be winding down and back into the swing of things, of schedules, preferably for the children, and,
And we get to talk about practices and get ready for games. We don't just have to make the show about conspiracy theories with Jay-Z.
Well, I like Jay-Z's Conspiracy Corner. That's a big part of the show.
I love that.
That's a tremendous part of it, and it's a big asset. Listen, I'm all for the schedules, and I like everything that Nicole's talking about. Those are all good things. But, when it's here, it's here, and it's going to be here for a while, and just enjoy it. Enjoy what you have. Don't try to turn the page too quickly.
Hey, guys, speaking of Jay-Z, I saw him last night. The mustache is back.
Of course
so
it is.
Everybody prepare
He's on
yourself.
He's on a golf trip or fishing or something.
No, he's on a family trip, but that mustache,
It's good.
It's your favorite.
it's got to go.
It won't. He must be doing something elaborate for Halloween with it.
Oh, yeah.
It's already starting right now.
I mean, and I was like, I just saw you last week. I don't remember seeing anything like that on your face last week.
He can grow them quick. Some people can.
It's thick, too.
Yeah.
It's fertile.
It's a lot better than Austin's facial hair.
Yeah, that's true.
Austin's is like a more well-maintained version of Luke Combs, very patchy and red.
Well, there might be a theme there. That might be all us redheads
Maybe
can do,
Jay-Z's
Bob.
getting ready
Chris
for
Stapleton.
camp.
Chris Stapleton has a sweet beard, and he also has a reddish tint, a reddish hue.
No, that would itch too much.
Yeah.
But we used to
So
to
hot.
grow up mustaches going into summer camp. So maybe Jay-Z's just going back to his football days. Like, hey, I'm gonna grow the mustache and go into camp with it.
Just let it go. Like
Yeah.
a playoff beard.
Because there's no one to impress during camp. That was the nice thing, is you could wear the same clothes every day. Because the reality is you were in like your civilian clothes for maybe an hour and a half, 2 hours a day. So like if you space that out based upon like how
Civilian.
well, I mean, like you put your clothes on, you eat breakfast, you go to the facility, you change. Those clothes hang in your locker most of the day. You eventually shower at the end. You put them back on. You go back, and then you go to bed.
It was kind of like the dumb things that you always wanted to try out. That's when you did it in camp because no one saw you. It's
How's
like
this gonna look?
If you want to go with a mohawk, like that was the time to grow it. You want to grow your hair out, like that was the time to do it. You know, test the mustache.
I think, Zach, you came out one time with like some sideburns or something.
Oh, dude, yeah, I used to grow those sideburns.
I need to
out
see a
all the
picture
time.
of that.
Oh my god!
Well, I had a sweet
I used to-
mustache
I
when
used
I
to have
played.
like chops.
Yeah, they
Yeah.
were. He was a bad dude.
I remember that. Yeah, God, I would grow my hair out. Wasn't a bald guy back then, Bob.
Yeah,
Those were the days.
there you go, Nicole. You can look at that sweet stash. I grew that during training camp. Yeah, you start getting that thing rolling, and eventually, like, starts with a beard, and then I kind of like lined it up into a little chin strap, and then eventually I cut the sideburns off, so I just had the goatee. And then I cut the bottom off, so like a sweet Fu Manchu. And eventually, in like the last iteration of it, it's like,
That's all you got left.
hacking it right there, dude, just above the lip. And then I kept that all season. Courtney absolutely hated it, and I cut it because we had our wedding. She said it was either the hair or the stash, and the stash took like half a season to grow. The hair was a multi-year commitment. So.
The hair's great. I'm fine with the hair. It's that mustache.
So my dad said the opposite. He liked the stash, not the hair.
A
He's
dad
old school.
would. Yeah, I agree with
And
that.
she didn't like it because when we were walking up, people would say "sweet porn stash carp," and like it just made her feel awkward.
Yeah, I can imagine not liking that one.
Yep.
And she said when I would kiss her, she'd take her hair and like rub it all over my face. She's like, "This is what it feels like."
It's
right
even
here.
worse than that.
Yeah, I don't know. I've never kissed someone with a mustache before.
Well, that's good to know as well.
At least not on purpose. I think it's time to talk about football. That I could continue that conversation all day. But
This
I don't
is
know.
football. This is what you do during
That's
camp.
what you do during camp. All right, that's a touche. That's a good
Do the
point.
car wash. They've got the Shrek list. I mean, all the good stuff.
I knew that was coming from Bob.
That's-
I was just waiting for the countdown. Like, how long was that going to be?
Anyway, yeah. What are you excited about? If you can muster some excitement for August, what are you most or curious about to see from Ohio State as they start camp this month's out?
I think all the focus is on the quarterback. How can it be? Ryan was just talking last week at Big Ten Media Days. This is the most veteran team that he has coming back from the standpoint of who you're replacing. From a starting standpoint, obviously there's some questions on the offensive line. You've got some questions, but that's not hard to figure out. It's just like, hey, who's going to do the job? Who isn't? You don't have to essentially set the pace like the offense does and be the commander in chief, so to speak. So the quarterback position, in my eyes, obviously I think everyone knows Kyle McCord is the guy going into camp, and I think he's going to be the guy to start the year. But this would be the time for him to really grow up, and it's going to set in. Spring ball is completely different feel. Bob will tell you, spring ball is completely different than summer camp. Summer camp's like, oh, man, we're playing a game in 4 weeks, 5 weeks, whatever it is. Kyle, you better get ready to go. So that's what I'm most excited about. See the command that he takes in the entire offense.
Yeah, spring ball's like open gym. Like you're just playing.
Correct.
Like there's nothing at the end. Like this, if someone gets hurt, you're like, yeah, how long are we gonna be out? Because we've got so many weeks to our first game, then days, and hey, we're working on this, and then all of a sudden, like little game plan nuggets like start sprinkled in there after like the first week to 10 days. So there's going to be some stuff that ultimately happens, and there's jobs that are beginning to shake out too. Because in the spring, we got the fall, we got the summer and fall. Fall camp will figure this out. And now, I mean, it's all right here in front of you. So I'm probably most excited to kind of see, as you mentioned, the most veteran teams. Zach, I think Kyle will be fine. And working out the offensive line, sure, but
Bobby can't be fine. He's the quarterback.
Well,
He's got to
he'll
be
be great.
good. Yeah, he's got to be great.
Something
Nicole
about the standard. I think,
famously
right,
said
Nicole?
the standard is a standard. So
Oh.
That is
Yeah.
what Nicole lives by.
it is. It's her credo. She actually has got a tattoo of it on her shoulder.
Oh, did she?
Yeah.
That's why she missed time.
It is. That's
Vacation.
why the food at Roosters is always elite, because the standard is the standard, Nicole. Yep.
I agree with it a little bit on
Uh-oh.
that.
She's in there now.
She's coming
She's
around.
in there now. Not like, hey, I don't want to go to the Olentangy on Thursday and get food that's elite and then go to another store on another day and be like, nah, this isn't very good. Standard is a standard. It's going to be great everywhere all the time.
But I think mistakes can happen, and it's just how you handle it.
That is
You know?
true. That is how you handle the mistake. But then, and you know what? That's a great segue, Nicole, because when you have a very veteran team, you start talking about the leadership components of it, there's going to be stuff that happens. And I'm curious, especially on the defensive side, you saw them take that jump last year. How do these guys now who have played a lot? You've got Tommy and Steele who have played a lot. Lathan Ransom has played a pretty good amount.
Denzel Burke.
Denzel Burke, great first year. Last year was battling injuries. He's back now. It's like watching JT Tuimoloau, Jack Sawyer, like these dudes, how they continue to respond And in the face of adversity, when they get beat up a couple series by the offense, like how are they going to respond? That's going to happen. And all of that to me is ultimately directed, and this is kind of where we were last year, ultimately to the final game of the season, where you're going to have some teams make plays on you. Like that's just the reality. You're not going to go blank everybody, 56-0. And so when the team makes a play, like how do they respond? How do they handle something that they haven't seen before? And so I'm excited when they start doing good on good in these competitive periods, just the communication aspect between guys, how advanced they can get, and all those different things, because it's fun to see that when you have guys who have played together for a long time, been through a lot of good, been through some bad, and now they're hopefully in a spot where they're going to be the leaders and be able to kind of drive this bus.
Yeah, the good thing, to your point, Bob, though, is with a veteran team, those guys have been punched in the mouth.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of those guys that are going to be on the field this year, especially on the defense side, were on the field when Michigan had those big plays in the second half against them, right? So they've dealt with those big plays, facing adversity. The issue is, I think, is how do you respond, right? I think maybe last year a little bit they would go into shock, expect the offense to make a play. When they didn't make a play, they're like, oh, man, what's going on? Something behind the scenes, and Bob's going to get a front row seat to this because I know he goes to a lot of practices.
Car wash?
No, if we talk about position battles and things like that, the thing that would be most intrigued to see in camp, how much physicality is there? Yeah. Are guys going to brawl? You know what I'm saying? Like, coaches don't love fighting, but there's
a little bit of it.
There's a point of it that they actually do enjoy, right? So it's like, what kind of toughness is this team going to be? Is there going to be some chirping in fall camp? Is there going to be some brawling? How tough is this team truly going to be? And that's something only people behind closed doors are going to have.
I think what's wrapped into all of that too, Zach, is when you have these veterans in the toughness and the knowledge, this particular group hasn't actually achieved any of their goals in the last couple of years. They don't have gold pants. They don't have a Big Ten championship. They don't have a national championship. They were close to accomplishing some at different points over the last couple of years, but ultimately they came up short of that. So this is a veteran group that has no sense of complacency.
Right.
So how does that translate into this camp? We know spring was pretty good. We know the mat drills. We know the summer workouts were all pretty good. It was fueling that. This is a team that's hungry, but you still have to go out and prove that once you get on the field.
They're not weighed down with 3 and 4 pair of gold pants that they've been training with the offseason. They're trying to go get some. The quest.
Yeah, but it's also I almost think it's tougher in the position they're in because as a coach, I think it's easy to kill complacency. At least you can send the message and be tough on the guys. When it's on the flip side where these guys are a veteran group and they're really good, but they haven't accomplished much, man, that starts to weigh on those guys, right? And as a head coach, like
the pressure of doing it.
The pressure, the buildup of the season of
Finkel is Einhorn? Einhorn is Finkel?
What? What did Bob say?
What would you know about pressure, Dan?
I think that's the biggest thing and how do you coach to that, right? Because they do, you have to go out. You need to win the Big Ten this year, right? You need to beat Michigan. You need to make a run at the national championship. So that's tough.
Nicole.
Do you guys feel though that the competition has become, I guess, more difficult with the other teams being in better spots, having better players than they have in the past, and that's why it's been so hard for our group now?
I would say Penn State's better than they've been in a while. And
Michigan, don't you think?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
This is a much tougher Michigan team to beat
ever
than the slaps that Zach was beating, in 2000.
Slap it?
In 2010. When people were walking off the field, leaving the stadium in the third quarter, I was looking around like, what is going on here? Like this is.
Yeah, you want to know something, Nicole?
It's not a negative. Like you can only play, you can play.
No, but this is what I was going to say. The thing that I think worries me the most of being an Ohio State fan is this might be the strongest Michigan team Harbaugh's ever had going into this year, right? And so the team that they lost to 2 years ago, I didn't think was very good. The team they lost to last year was better than that team, but I don't think they were world beaters. You saw what they did against TCU. So knowing that team, Michigan team, is that much stronger this year and probably the best team Harbaugh's ever had at Michigan, that's kind of scary, knowing what's happened in the past 2 years.
It's going to be a very intense game. I've talked about it in the past.
We've already fast forward the whole season.
We're done with training camp, and now we're talking about late November.
Well, I think we just brought it up because we were talking about Michigan, but I think it's just going to make it that much more special, and it's going to mean so much more to these guys because they've had to work so hard to get it.
Just
You
a
know?
quick programming note: Roosters will be closed on Thanksgiving Day, so their team members can spend time with their families.
Yes, and
If
that
you're
is true.
seeing this after Thanksgiving, which maybe that's
Yes.
where we are
There you
now.
go.
And don't
Yeah.
forget to register for the bowl trip giveaway. This
Yes.
is the last week
Yeah.
of the regular season. So
Yeah,
Bob, hey, Penn State is
Penn
probably
State's-
the best they've been in a while.
they are. They're very talented.
Yeah.
Now they still have James Franklin as their coach,
No
so we
doubt.
got that going for us.
You know, and the other thing is Ohio State's beaten Penn State for however many years
Yeah.
in a row now.
It's
Like
since
it's kind of
2016.
it's kind of a confidence thing, right? When you walk into them. But to your point, the other Big Ten, the
Wisconsin?
the road test against Wisconsin this
Yeah.
year. Oh my God, this Ohio State team's got a lot of contests that are going to be really hard on them.
They've got Notre Dame on. They have three. I mean, Notre Dame on the road. Marcus told us that. Believe me, South Bend, playing in South Bend is, what was this quote, Austin? It's a lot tougher to play up there.
I don't
As
know
long
about
as it's
that.
not Georgia.
what,
When
what he
their
likes
team-
to believe. This will be the second time
Yeah.
in the last 5 years that the stadium is overrun with a
Yeah.
But they've
shade
got,
of red.
they're at Notre Dame, they're at Wisconsin, and then they're at Michigan.
Yep.
You know, so their four toughest games,
Two of the three being night games.
two of the three being
Yeah.
night games as well. But don't worry, we get Michigan State at home at night in
Yes.
November. So that's
Can't
the
wait.
nugget that you're looking
Can't
for.
wait.
Yeah, wearing gray uniforms.
We are a lot more of a veteran team, as we were talking,
It's
though, which
good.
I think is what we have going for us. When we lost, when we were in Michigan 2 years ago, right?
Yeah.
Because we were there.
Yep.
That was like a newer team.
It was.
CJ's first year, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, because we were talking about how cold it was for him up there. But
Just
Especially for someone with the flu.
Yeah, the toughness element too is something, like you said, the fight. You don't want guys who are out there going to get penalties in the game. I mean, like
I thought you needed shankability out there.
you do, but you don't need guys that are going to get penalties.
thank you for saying
Like
that.
G Scott, I'm glad that he's tougher. We don't need to have the nonsense
No.
15-yarders. You know, like,
Change the game.
like our guy Cam Brown. I don't mind that up there when no one else is fighting back and like
Sure.
this is a bad situation and some dude is like leaning into you on it. Maybe you get a little aggressive and maybe that sparks something. But, you know, in a critical situation, we're talking, you know, third down, second down, you're converting, and these things are setting you back. So you want guys who will push it right to the edge and know when to walk away. And that comes with experience, you know, hopefully being in those situations before. So that's kind of what I'm excited to see. I mean, just the battling back of these guys and knowing that when you've been in those tough situations, experience is the best teacher. And, like, it's really tough to replicate. You can talk about it all day long, but those guys have now been there and they know what it feels like to kind of be up in those games and to have them slip away. And now it's just how do we be up and finish the deal?
I will never understand this whole tough, like being a little bit aggressive, brawling a little bit, guys. I just think everybody should be nice to each other and
No,
just.
it's good. It's
No.
good for the soul.
I
It's good for the soul a
just.
little bit.
You know how your
Good
kid,
for the
you know-
I feel
okay.
it causes drama.
No, it's good
So-
for the team.
I mean, your kids are like BFFs. They're good friends. Okay, but you know they're separated in age by a decent chunk. Like, my kids, when they get together, I mean, they could be apart for a week, and within 2 days they're fighting again.
Yes.
Because like when you see the same people over and over again, and you're always going back and forth, like even with your friends, guys who you respect, it's like okay, well everybody wants to win, and so that's what happens during camp is you don't get to do anything else. You get to hit anybody else, and that's why the coach is like, well, we're ready for our first game because our guys are.
We want to see a
fighting.
different color.
We want to
Yeah,
see a different color. You're sick of going against the
Yeah.
same guy
It's
who you
almost
don't.
it's a good thing, right?
It
When you
is.
get to that point, you're like, man, you're just bleeding from the mouth. Like, I just want some other blood.
It's going
Want
to take
some
me a
other blood.
minute.
Want some
It's going to
other
take me a minute to understand this
Yeah,
concept.
back to camp real quick.
Yeah.
We'll reverse this and
Back
get
to the
back on
car
topic.
wash.
You know, we've talked about veteran experience and veteran team, but there are
Veteran
some
showers.
Yeah, but there are some guys that are newer players. It's like, how do they fit in? There are some storylines. Sonny Styles has been brought up, right? Where does Sonny fit in? CJ Hicks is a very talented player. Where does he fit in? Kenyatta Jackson has been talked about. Where does he fit in from defensive end standpoint, knowing those spots are taken? And then you go to the other side of the ball, and I know this has been a hot topic for a year and a half now. You go to running back, right? You've got some veteran guys with Travion Henderson and Mayan Williams, but where does a guy like Evan Pryor fit in? Where does Dallin Hayden fit in, who I think is maybe the most gifted of that entire group? So you've got some young guys that have veterans in front of them, but you almost feel like this is that year. They're not true freshmen. These are guys that need to see the field. So how do they fit in?
Yeah, you've got Royer, you've got Scott, you got Kay, you got a lot of good tight ends
Yeah.
as well. I mean, everyone talks about the receivers. How do you because you can only have 5 skill position players on the field at a time. So everyone's like, oh, they use more tight ends. I'm like, yeah, but they also have a lot of good receivers.
Yeah.
Well,
one goes in, one has to come out. So
yeah, we'll use 2 running backs at a time. I'm like, all right, well, which receiver are you taking off the field? You're going to go no tight end. And so trying to watch Ryan kind of balance all that. And then another guy that, has been hurt a lot, but has a lot of ability, and I think they might be finally utilizing in the right way. I mentioned C.J. Hicks, but Mitchell Melton is another guy who's a big frame guy coming off the ACL. Can they get him, into that, jack position now with Sawyer being more of a permanent defensive end, and maybe that's something that he can kind of
But still,
find his way.
Jack, who you pulling off the field?
Yeah, I know.
Right? You got to pull someone off the field.
You got to take him off, yeah.
And this being a defensive guy, you do not want to leave the field. You get into the groove of the game. Like, it's almost like you feed off that. As a defensive guy, it's almost like you get better the more plays that go on. But yeah, there's a lot of things that have to happen.
You know what keeps getting better? Appetizer 3's days, Austin. And these cheesy bacon wedges that are going to be the featured appetizers.
I think it's the ideal delivery device for the cheese and the bacon.
It really is, because there's enough density and volume in the wedge, more than a fry, that you can get a lot more cheese and bacon on it without the risk of like the fry bending down and breaking in half. So this is the ultimate delivery mechanism for, you want to take the potato, you're going to marry it with the pork. So you like that right there. You're going to get, you've got the pig, you've got the cow, you've got the potato. It's really...
It is a heftier potato item.
It is. It's nice. And it can, you can eat it as an app. You can eat it as a side. You might even be able to use a whole meal if you want to get 2 of them.
I think.
Or 1.
Maybe even 3. Listen, I want more the better, Nicole. That's what I always say.
When you can load up for $3 on Tuesday, you absolutely should. Nicole, there's somebody else that you wanted to watch in camp before you get out of here?
Oh, so the O linemen came in for a team building dinner as we're talking about veterans and
talk
kind
about,
of being
talk
leaders.
About cheesy bacon
Guys,
wedges.
we've figured out how many linemen can fit from this wall to that wall. So, that's pretty. I was like, okay,
surprising.
Can't go more than 20.
Can hold the weight of it all.
Looks like 5.
We do chairs. They, first of all, just what a great group. And I always say kids because I'm older, but they're just so polite, so kind.
Young men.
They're just, I just love being around them, all of them. And you can tell they have good leadership. And Donovan Jackson, who, is more of a veteran player,
huge
and
arms.
kind of seeing him step up. And you could tell he coordinated the dinner, wanting to kind of be a leader and bring the guys together, all of them, before, this week camp. So I'm just anxious to see how that all works, because it was weird because they did a dinner here last year and not seeing Luke Whippler, who coordinated it last year. So it was neat to see. You could see him Donovan kind of getting into his role, which was nice.
Yeah, they need it. Anything else going on at Roosters right now?
National Chicken Wing Day was amazing. We were very, very busy, so thank you to everybody who came out. And at the end of the month, we'll start talking Buckeye Bowl Trip giveaway.
Best time of year. Bob's getting ready for the promos right now.
It's already over. We're picking the winner next week.
That's right.
Just playing Michigan on Saturday.
Congrats to the other 11 winners.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Hey, I'm ready. I'm
Here
ready.
we go. Just fast forward. I think there's a lot of other things that we can get to before then, and we will when we come back. We'll take a break. Second half of the show in the Horseshoe Lounge at Roosters, which, of course, is a fun, casual joint.
Roosters has been so fortunate. We just want to be able to give some of that back to the community.
They donate to organizations that are near and dear to their heart, and we're so fortunate to have been with Roosters now for a long time.
They always go above and beyond to help support our foundation to further help veterans.
It's just a wonderful feeling to know that Roosters supports the Buckeye Cruise for Cancer.
All the folks at Roosters are just genuinely kind folks, and they want to make a difference.
Thank you, Roosters Foundation.
Thank you, Roosters.
Thank you, Roosters.
Thank you, Roosters Foundation.
Welcome back to the second half in the Horseshoe Lounge at Roosters. Berma's here, and he had a busy weekend. Tell us what you did.
2 big commitments for Ohio State this weekend. First one, Chris Henry Jr., 2026 wide receiver. So that means he's going into his sophomore season of high school.
Where's he play?
He's down in Cincinnati at Withrow High School. He's ridiculous, kind of. He's a kid that
his dad was a pretty talented player.
Pretty great football player for a couple of years for the Bengals before tragedy befell him, and now you see this opportunity for Chris for Junior. Like, he camped at Ohio State heading into his freshman season of high school, and nobody knew who he was.
Like, who's this kid?
He walked in with
He immediately caught the eye.
He walked in with Pac-Man Jones. And then got offered by Brian Hartline before he ever even enrolled in high school. So that's how you know generally someone's a little bit different.
Are you allowed to do that?
Apparently so.
And you can give anybody, you can verbal, I mean, anything.
There's been 2 players that I can recall in the last handful of years that had an offer from Ohio State before their freshman year, and that was Quinn Ewers and Chris Henry Jr. So those, generally speaking, like when that guy is there, you sort of figure it out quickly if someone's.
I hope this goes better for Chris Henry Jr.
I imagine it probably
I would agree.
will. But Quinn Ewers is going to win the Heisman this year. But that's apropos of nothing.
Oh,
He
my
sure
God.
isn't.
Oh my gosh, how good we talking?
You're talking 6'5", 185 already going into his sophomore year.
Yeah.
And he's skinny. It's not like a kid.
His dad, I mean, that's what his dad.
Yeah,
it was like
Slim.
6'4".
Yeah, Dad was nicknamed Slim. I
Yeah.
mean, you can see why looking at Junior. But it's, you don't want to use the term generational because we've watched Marvin Harrison and now you see Jeremiah Smith.
Can you have more than one generational talent in a
It
generation?
feels like these generations are being
They're
toppled
shorter
on top.
than ever.
Yeah,
A generation is now 1 year.
the generations are being sort of topped on top of one another. But the reality is he's going to be as good as he wants to be, and that's
Are
what
we
you
talking
want.
like number 1 player in the country good?
You're
or-
talking almost certainly 5-star wide receiver, number 1 receiver in the country, good, depending on how his body fills out over the next year. But I mean, again, this is a kid who's going into a sophomore season, so lots of growth. But on the field, he went out to L.A., was part of the Elite 11 and the opening this summer, and was probably the best receiver there from talking to people out there. And that was when people nationally don't really know who he is, and they're like, okay, now let's
Oh,
pay
that makes
attention.
sense.
That adds up. So it was kind of cool. I mean, we don't get to see that sort of experience very often where, number 1, Ohio State at their big recruiting events isn't usually opening the door for media and saying, hey, show up to this. But they wanted some people there. So, like, we weren't.
That did happen this year for the first time that I can
We
recall.
weren't allowed inside of the building when they're doing their festivities and stuff, but they wanted the kids who were there to get some media attention when they left. So Chris Henry Jr. was actually like the first person to leave, essentially, and first player that had like an Ohio State offer and was people wanted to talk to him. And so he's leaving, and he walks out, puts his stuff in his car with Pac-Man Jones, and then comes back to talk to the media. And he's sitting there for about 3.5 minutes just talking very generic garbage stuff. I was actually off on the side talking with Brian Hartline.
I love that Pac-Man brought him. Gosh, that's
Pac-Man's his
beautiful.
dad. Pac-Man adopted
He's
him.
his guardian, yeah.
Really?
Yeah, Pac-Man adopted him. Yeah.
So I was off on
Yes.
I was off on the side
Yes, Bob.
talking to Brian
We
Hartline.
just blew Bob's mind.
Yeah,
over there.
It's an off-air
Bob's lost.
conversation,
Keep
though.
on. We're
So
wait,
talking about my former teammate.
Yeah.
I was off on the side. I was off on the side talking to Brian Hartline about something else while the rest of the media there had the cameras and stuff in Chris's face. And Parker Fleming had been speaking with Pac-Man Jones a few feet away, and Parker comes over and he talks to Hartline. He goes, "Hey, he's getting ready to commit right now." And Hartline's like, "Oh, he's not." And then you hear Pac-Man go, "So are you committing or what?"
Let's go, man.
And he's like,
Saturday and Friday night, I got to get back.
He's like,
Get some stuff to do.
so are you committing or what? And he's like, are you ready? He's like, yeah, I'm ready. And he's like, okay, I'm committing to Ohio State. Like, so we don't get to see that. We don't get to see that.
Did he not go to the different bag? He didn't have like 3 or 4 bags. He had to go back to the car and pull some stuff out
No,
of.
and it's interesting just because Chris, like, I've gotten to know him fairly well in the last year. He's not a big talker like Pac-Man.
His dad didn't talk much.
Pac-Man is keeping things very tight around his recruitment. He
Good.
doesn't want him talking to a bunch of people and getting manipulated and used and whatever. So, you could see that he's like, I don't know if I want to do this right here, because he was like sort of reluctant and you know, now you're going to see him grow as a kid over the next couple of years, which is the cool part of this entire process to me.
Which is nice that he puts it out there right now before anyone knows who he is. He's an Ohio kid. So,
Yeah.
I mean, those are kids you generally don't have to worry about much stuff happening as long as things stay consistent.
Yeah, I mean, obviously there's always going to be the overarching concern of like how Brian Hartline's career, how long is he at Ohio State, what happens there. But Chris Henry Jr., like, he committed because he said, I love Ohio State. This is everything I want. Why would I look anywhere else? So, and
Pac-Man just told me I had to.
Yeah, Pac-Man forced me to do it to get it over with now.
I mean, it's a pretty,
Cha-cha.
it's pretty cool. I mean, to see that unfold again when we watched Pac-Man show up with him a year and a half ago, like, this is wild. And then you hear the story like the Pac-Man had adopted him, and you're like, this is even more wild. And now he's committed to Ohio State, and now you have to hold on to him for 3 years. So
Pac-Man played with a lot of Buckeyes. I mean,
he went to West Virginia. It's not like he's against the Midwest.
I think it was probably in his best interest to get out of South Florida and go to West Virginia. less trouble to get into there.
He still seemed to find trouble.
Well, absolutely. If you search hard enough, it's everywhere, but it's less visible right in your face, and they have a better ability to cloak it.
Yeah.
When things potentially happen.
He must have loved Cincinnati though, because that's where he settled
Stayed
down.
there. Well, they've got a casino, which I know is one thing that was very important for him on his.
You gotta have priorities when you're settling.
Yeah.
Well, at this point, he seems like a model citizen.
He's a good. I always
a
liked
guy
Playoff
that
Pac-Man.
obviously stepped up in a big way and filled some shoes that needed to be filled, and that's cool. Like that's what you do it for. If you're a guy like Adam Pac-Man Jones, who growing up, you have all these opportunities. Like the whole, each one teach one thing, I guess, is the important.
Each one teach one.
Whoa.
Yeah, you never heard that before?
I don't know what that means.
Like everyone, like find someone and give them, life wisdom.
Oh yeah. Listen, I'm a proponent of that. I didn't realize that there was a.
That's what I always call it.
Yeah.
Each one teach one. So
You got a new phrase, Bob.
I think he thought we all had heard that before.
Yeah, you got a new
I
phrase.
definitely
All right,
not.
so
I thought
second
that was
commitment.
Harlan's. Obviously, the second one was Aaron Scott on Sunday night, committing to Ohio State over Michigan and Oregon and a bunch of other
Is
schools.
that the son of the former Pac-12 commissioner,
No.
Larry Scott?
No, it's the son of a guy named Aaron Scott.
Also, junior. That's where
Yes.
that comes in. Okay.
Yeah, that's
Two
how-
juniors this weekend.
That's true.
2 juniors. One of them is a senior, one's a sophomore.
Yeah.
So
Oh, boy.
that's where things get confusing. Obviously, this commitment was interesting.
You've been high on this for a while, though, Berm. You've been on the trail.
I just didn't think it was. There was always conversation about Michigan, and they did a great job recruiting him. That's not even a.
That hamburger you said was fantastic last year.
Well, not the hot dogs they had at their cookout on Sunday. That was bad.
What a horrible spread, by the way. I know, we don't need to distract from the Aaron Scott conversation, but what in the world are they serving at these barbecues?
You know what that is? That's winner-loser meal. They got the loser
They're
meal.
all
after
losers?
the game.
Hey, you chose to come to our weekend. You are a loser.
It's a boiled hot. Did you see it, Zach?
Yeah, it was
It looked
bad.
like a boiled hot dog,
It might have even just been microwaved with a paper towel around.
which is what my kids like. I go, can I put this on the grill? No, put it in the microwave.
And it was a legit Chips Ahoy cookie.
Yeah, for sure.
100% Chips
Well,
Ahoy
it was
cookie.
welcome to the Michigan barbecue, brought to you by Costco.
Oreida, tater tots that you pull out of the freezer at Kroger. It was not. It was not
gross.
like a. It's not what I would
No,
serve.
you want to know
It was
something?
not something delicious like cheesy bacon fries.
Yeah, you want to know
Wedges.
something? It almost looked like, Delaware North does all the food for Ohio Stadium.
Yeah.
It was like they forgot about the food for the weekend cookout, and they called Delaware North and like, hey, we need whatever you got.
no.
And they're like, well, we got some frozen chicken tenders and
Just ask
some mac and cheese. We'll bring you.
ask Coach Campbell to stop at GFS and pick up stuff. on the way back.
basically that's what it was like.
But obviously, like the recruitment was back and forth for a while. I went and saw Aaron at his high school about a month ago. We just went and talked. I didn't write anything. There was no video. It was just a temperature check, so to speak.
You used to call those the oil check.
To see where. I'm going to say temperature check for a very purposeful reason, to avoid that conversation. But we talked
At the
then,
car
and
wash.
he said that going into the Ohio State official visit, he was doing it basically because he told Ohio State he would make the visit, but he was going to commit to Michigan. That was his plan. And then it changed. And he told me when I was there at the school a few weeks ago, like, I'm pretty sure of what I'm doing, but come back in a couple of weeks and we'll sit down and we'll do an interview. So I was texted him on Tuesday night when we were in Indianapolis for Big Ten Media Days. I said, hey, I'm going to come by Thursday if you let me. Otherwise, I'll come by Sunday when the rest of the world finds out. And he's like, go ahead and come by. So I was like, all right, let's do it. So we did the interview on Thursday for the commitment, and then somehow like no one else found out. He told me at the time that I knew and his parents knew, and that was it. So I'm like, oh, feels a little exclusive.
I mean, you're the only non-blood relative or non-blood
Yeah. So
person.
He's blood now.
It was. I appreciate the opportunity. I think it's
So like
important to make sure that
the Hangover, where you guys did the hand slits.
There
And
was
Blood Brothers?
There was a blood bond happening.
Okay.
Yes, it's like Paul Walker and Vin Diesel.
It's the second time we've talked about mixing blood
Family.
on the show today.
Nothing's more important
Never
than
go
family.
against the family. No, so obviously the way he did it, I don't know. You guys are old school.
Yeah.
Like, how do you feel about the reveal where he's throwing away the Ohio State backpack, picking up the Michigan backpack, and then pulling out the Ohio State jersey? How did you feel?
I would have been more. I was still a little bit on angst, even though it was tweeted out retweeted from the Ohio State football team. Like, wait a second, why would they be reposting this if he's going to the Michigan backpack? Oh, we're going to go inside for a deeper dive.
The okey doke.
I don't know. I mean, if guys want to do that, that's fine. I mean, at least I was just standing there doing this with a video. And I've watched guys that there's full production teams and all kinds of stuff going on and flash mobs popping up and everything else.
I'm old school about it. Obviously.
Do you remember? Hold up. Sorry. Tight end Rucker. Do you remember his video? I want to say.
I don't remember.
I want to say he had the video. Where's he from? Jersey?
Yeah. New York.
I want to say that he had a video that, I mean, the production quality was high on it. I mean, and there was like a lot of people involved in it.
10 years ago.
I think you got a SAG card for it.
10 years ago, Bleacher Report was paying $100,000 each time they produced a kid's commitment video. Remember when Trayvon Grimes and Tyjon Lindsey had a big dodgeball?
Yes.
Like this was all the rage for a few moments. And I think what Bleacher Report realized is that we're not getting anything exclusive here. We're just paying a bunch of money for kids to have videos because kids were still telling everyone else. So it's taken on a life of its own. But, I think what was interesting about it is that I assume that there will be some Michigan folks who were offended or feeling disrespected. And, he went out of his way through his entire recruitment to be extremely, cordial and respectful to Michigan and everyone. Yeah. So, you do that, and Michigan's entire pitch to him was to be a villain and, screw Ohio State, come play in Ann Arbor and be a villain. And I think it's somewhat ironic that, in his ultimate act of villainy,
that's what he did.
It was against Michigan. So
yeah, what I was going to say is I think these are high school kids, and they're one time where they might feel like they've got a say and got some sense of surprise is their recruitment. Yeah. And I think throughout the entire recruitment of Aaron Scott, he obviously kept things close to the vest, didn't really leak anything. So it was his way of hey, this is my one surprise. I can. I can do what I want. Kind of, I'm gonna play with people's minds a little bit and keep them thinking up until I finally commit.
Yeah, he had told me that him and his family had informed Oregon that they were not going to be the choice when I saw him on Thursday, but they hadn't told Ohio State or Michigan of the decision. And I got a call from someone at Ohio State on Sunday night about 6:25. So this was supposed to happen at 6:30, and the person on the phone says, "We're not getting screwed here, are we?" I'm like, "You guys don't even know. This is wild." But
I know
that's the funny, the funny part of it is that, yesterday on Twitter, people are like, "Oh, how do you keep this secret?" I'm like, it's not my story. I'm just helping tell the story the kids want. So I do value that opportunity. So
here's the moral of this, folks. If you have something you need to keep in confidence and you need to get it off your chest, tell Berm.
This man is evolved.
He's a lockbox.
Yeah.
Right there.
It's unfortunate that it has to go that way sometimes, but I don't feel bad.
A pickup like this, Zach, does it make you feel? We've talked to for the last several years. The top 100 players, Ohio State's recruiting is all on the offensive side. It's been imbalanced on defense. It feels like there's a little bit of a corner turning right now. I think part of it is just staff continuity, but does this make you feel better about the progress being made on that side of the ball?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. But then again, recruiting is such a big thing, and obviously, Berm will be the first to speak on that. It used to be just college football, and recruiting was like a subsidiary of college football. Mm-hmm. Now it's like its own entity over here, and it's just as big as college football. What I think I care more about is what's the performance on the field for Ohio State. That does most of the talking. If recruiting can be hit or miss. We've seen it. Look at the linebacker coach right now, James Laurinaitis, 3-star kid from Minnesota. No one really thought he was going to be much. And look at what he did.
You mean graduate assistant?
Graduate assistant. You know what I'm saying. But
he meant linebackers coach.
Yeah, linebackers coach. That's what I meant.
Show me the business card.
So I think that's the biggest thing is getting top guys in Ohio that are ranked within the top 100 are obviously massive wins, and you have to continue to win those battles. We've seen them lose some over the years, right? But yeah, I think the bigger focus should be how's that defense perform this year. Second year under Jim Knowles, that will truly tell you how the recruiting's going.
Well, that's really the ultimate test here the next couple months. There's a lot of kids that are in that conversation like, hey, I want to say yes to Ohio State, but is this defense going to improve? And this is not an Ohio State issue. I want to be very clear. This is a Big Ten issue.
Right.
If you go through the national recruiting list, the commitment list, and look for how many top 100 or top 50 defensive players are committed to the Big Ten, there's not a lot.
No.
And kids are being taught in the South, where most of these kids are being recruited from, that the only way to get to the SEC and be developed for NFL football is by playing in the SEC, period. And some of
on
that
the defense side of the
on
ball.
the defensive side of the ball. Some of that's through the personal trainers who are being basically paid off by the colleges themselves. Some of it is because those trainers played at SEC schools and they've gone back home. Some of it is just the perception of the fact that the SEC has won 13 of the last 14 national championships. Like, these are things you can't dismiss.
Clemson's not in the SEC, bro.
They may as well be. Well, so they've won 11 of the last 14. My apologies.
But it's still kind of like the ACC too, right? You look at the Florida States, the
Southern
Clemsons
schools,
of the
right.
world, right? It's like all these defensive players are going to those schools thinking there's something completely different that they're learning there compared to Ohio State, and that's not the case.
Yeah, I don't know where that comes from necessarily, but that is the fight. I mean, I know there was a top 100 cornerback in the class of 2023 who wanted to go to Ohio State, and his personal trainer, who's a very well-respected defensive back trainer, told him, if you go there, you're not going to make it to the NFL.
Which, at that position, I would say there's overwhelming evidence to the contrary.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you want to talk about like defensive line play and some other things, which Ohio State stands apart in that as well, but in the Big Ten at large, I could see that. But Ohio State's produced as many first-round corners as anybody over the last 7 or 8 years.
That's the fight, though. And so, Ohio State goes into this next week now. On the defensive line, they've got Justin Scott, the number 1 ranked defensive tackle in the country, committed. That's great. That's a pretty good starting point. You have 2 linebackers you really like in Peyton Pierce and Garrett Stover. You have 3 cornerbacks you really like in Aaron Scott, Bryce West, and Miles Lockhart. You have a safety you really like in Jalen McClain. But now here comes like the difference makers, the differentiators between a top 5 class in the country, which Ohio State will almost certainly end up with, versus a class that could rival Georgia and be the number 1 class in the country, because you have KJ Bolden, 5-star from Georgia, committing on Saturday. That's going to be Ohio State, Florida State, Georgia, Auburn, Alabama. Like, you got to win that battle. Well, Buckeyes, he's related to Perry Eliano. Okay, I know it's tangentially, like it's not like they're first cousins, but they are related. If you are Ohio State in a position of giant need at safety, and the player who's the number 1 player in the country at that position is related to the coach who's recruiting him,
coaches that position, literally, not just on the staff, coaches that position.
You can't win that battle, then I don't know how you can ever win any of them.
Bigger sacks of cash.
Like,
there's a way to do it.
This isn't even a situation. Ohio State's NIL,
got to be your own kids.
Ohio State's NIL opportunity at this point is as good as anyone in the country. They have fixed it in that respect. But now you got to win those battles. You got to get Dylan Stewart, the number 1.
I didn't realize he was related to Perry.
You got to.
Gosh, that's terrible for Perry.
Dylan Stewart, the number 2 ranked defensive end in the country, is going to commit between Ohio State or South Carolina in the next.
Is he related to Rod?
Yes, yes, he is related to Rod Stewart.
Okay, perfect.
Which is good because Rod Stewart's great.
He's a Buckeye fan.
You have Edric Houston, another 5-star defensive end who's committing on August 22nd.
Where's he from?
From Buford High School in Georgia, same as KJ Bolden. He's committing between Ohio State, Alabama, Georgia, Clemson. I mean, you have to win these battles. These are the difference makers.
Well, if
how do you feel about these, Berm?
I think Ohio State is in the top 2 for all 3 of them, and I think that they will land at least 2 of the 3.
Okay, so I would say that that's a pretty good class. If you can go 3 for 3, that's awesome.
If you go 3 for 3, you're talking about a historical
it's back
class.
to your point, though, Berm, that if you can pull those kids out of the South, knowing that they're number 1, number 2, number 3 at their position in the entire country, that sends a message. That sends shockwaves across the recruiting trail. Let's be honest, those kids. Yeah, I know. There you go, Bob. Those kids
the pinky's the shock.
Yeah, but those kids are interacting with each other on social media. They're constantly staying up on that stuff. They see those kids going to Ohio State. They're like, oh, man, you can do that.
It also is a reminder of how quickly memories fade, okay? The Ohio State class of 2013, which was Joey Bosa, Ezekiel Elliott.
Nick might be the highest paid defensive player in the NFL.
Von Bell chose Ohio State in that class on signing day between Ohio State and Alabama. No one thought he'd pick Ohio State. The promise from Urban Meyer was, you're going to come here and win a national championship and be in the NFL. It happened, right?
Right.
The class of 2017, which is, in my life of following Ohio State recruiting, you have really 4 or 5 classes that are like stand above the rest. There's the 2002 class, which was
way to go there, Berm.
One of the that class was absolutely loaded top to bottom, won the national championship. There was the 2008 class, which was the Terrell Pryor year. somewhat disappointing in the way it ended, but obviously pretty productive in the class. 2013.
First SEC victory in like 20 years or whatever.
Well, that one doesn't count, remember?
I forgot about it.
The 2013.
It happened.
The 2013
Right,
class,
Zach?
which was great. The 2013 class won the national championship. The 2015 roster comprised almost of that team with maybe the most talented roster in Ohio State football history. The 2017 class, where you had Chase Young, Jeffrey Okudah, J.K. Dobbins, Sean Wade, etc. Like those
They're
guys,
close.
They're close. That 2019 defense was as good as any in the country. And then you have the 2021 class, which was J.T. Tuimoloau, Jack Sawyer, Emeka Ibuka, Trayvon Henderson, Kyle McCord, Marvin Harrison, blah, blah, blah. Those other classes turned it around and showed it on the field. Ohio State needs desperately for this 2021 class to lead a resurgence on the defensive side of the ball in this season.
Desperately wanting?
Desperately wanting and needing.
They get a chance to start doing that on the field on Thursday, camp opening for Ohio State. We can't wait. We could have kept this show rolling for another 3 or 4 hours. There's that much to talk about for the Buckeyes, but we're not. We're going to wrap it up here. We're going to get ready for full camp coverage on the podcast coming soon. Going to get these guys back together for some weekend kickoff this season. Can't wait for that. And we hope you enjoyed another Monday in the Roosters, or at Roosters in the Horseshoe Lounge. Easy for me to say. Thanks to Nicole Cox for having us. Come for cheesy bacon
wedges.
$3 on Appetizer Thursday. That's Bob, Zach, Berm. I'm Austin. We'll talk to you next week.